Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for 2019. Now, a couple of years ago, and it was almost our anniversary, I'm not going to shame him, there was a man who was somewhere between heaven and hell. You could say he was actually in purgatory. But he wasn't a man that you should ever underestimate, because he came to talk to us about his Kickstarter campaign. And that man was Gary Deveraux. And Gary Deveraux was from Underestimated Games. And Gary Deveraux brought Purgatory minis to life through the realms of Kickstarter. But he's back. And just like any good sequel, it's like a buddy cop movie. Because it's not just Gary, it's also a gentleman from Paranoid Miniatures Games. It's Mark Brown as well. So they're going to be wisecracking back and forward tonight, providing the entertainment, so I don't have to do anything because, I'm just having a rest because it's been a long day and I'm a bit tired. But hello, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Very, very good indeed. I've not had the pleasure of speaking to you before. Obviously, I've spoken so much to Gary. He's now an official kind of repeat offender. In fact, he's potentially kind of out on parole, as you would say.
So we're coming about
that. He just likes his prison food. You've got a Kickstarter coming. Well, it's weird. You've got two Kickstarters coming at kind of exactly the same time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? What that's all about and that's happening, Gary?
You saw me point. That's cheating. Good evening, everybody.
I saw your point.
Yes, we do have a Kickstarters coming. Well, two Kickstarters coming. Mark and I have been friends for a very long time, and we were talking about how hard it was to get involved with Kickstarters these days, especially as you're a small company. So we were just chewing the fat, innovating on a long car journey. We do it quite often where one's driving to one end of the country and I'm driving to the other. And we just come up with the harebrained idea of perhaps creating a bit of a bridge between the two worlds to help, bring a different focus of attention to it and create something dynamic that people hadn't seen before, perhaps.
Okay. What's for you, since you were on the show, have you seen like a radical change in kind of like Kickstarter since you did the Purgatory Minis kind of Kickstarter?
I think there's a little change. I think when games first started emerging on Kickstarter, everybody sort of set themselves a budget to spend and just said we're going to buy all this stuff. And I think what happened is there's the natural cycle where when everyone bought everything, they bought lots and lots and lots of things. And then in consecutive months, a year later, they all turned up. And we then basically, I think people realised they actually had a huge collection of games and didn't know what to do with them or had time to play with them. Yeah. And a huge number of models to either glue, paint, or play with. And I think that just naturally slowed it down. I'm not entirely sure, but that seems to correlate with what's happened, in my view.
We, as Gary said, we attend a lot of shows together as well. We, being two sort of indie companies, we're always looking at ways that we can help each other out. And going to shows together, sharing tables. We obviously, one of the great things about that is you get to talk to a lot of people, over the course of a day. And, Kickstarter invariably comes up as a subject of conversation for people. And certainly the vibe we're getting, this is no hard and fast market surveys we've done or anything like that, but the advent of Kickstarter as a pre-sale or pre-order, with companies sort of going to it with fairly polished and finished products, has caused people to take a sort of second look at it, I think. And Gary's right in regards to sort of the amount of stuff that people get, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years later. I think it's just caused people to have another look at it as a platform, and is it working for them? And obviously everybody's individual with that and makes their own choices.
In terms of like with you kind of being involved in the miniatures game, do you think that's hurt you maybe a little bit more than other people? Because one of the big, every time I see a huge campaign, there seems to be like 90 or 100 minis that are practically bragging that, you could live off these minis for the rest of your life if you bought a couple of boxes. So do you think that's created a false economy in terms of how much it costs a miniature to actually get made? They've kind of turned it into kind of like made it a false economy where you're coming in and people are saying, well, that's more expensive than what I would get if I backed like a CMON game or something like that instead.
Right. I think that it's something that happened to us quite a few times where people would ask us about the model count per pound. And we kind of looked at it, and we create, both of us actually, we create resin models. They're quite detailed. We get fantastic quality comments about it. Whenever we go to shows, people say the quality's excellent, the detail's good. They really like our models, and we've seen them being painted by some prominent painters out there. I'm not sure if the same can be said for some of the models that you do get 10,000 of in a £1 box. Yeah. I'm being facetious, but you get my point. I mean,
absolutely.
They are made of a different product. You can bend them in half. They are designed, I think, and quite rightly so, to be picked up on a board and thrown across the table because people won't paint them because they can't paint 10,000 models unless they are, currently unemployed. But I just think that it has created a bit of a false economy. And I think the other thing that we noticed as well, and I think people picked up on it, was that the 3D render was always being shown by other companies to say, this is what the model's going to look like, this is how cool it is, this is how detailed it is, how sharp it is.
Yeah.
And then people said, can you just show us what a cast looks like? Because the cast doesn't usually look like the 3D master. So I think people have wised up. They know what they value. And
I think I saw something earlier, like on last week or the week before, and I think it was Court of the Dead. And I saw Court of the Dead was like it was a kind of a bit of it was a success last year. They did a decent amount of money, and they did the same thing. They were showing kind of like the 3D renders of the miniatures. And then what they've done recently is they've released some actual production versions of the miniatures. And in all honesty, it was like lighting the blue touch paper and just stepping back, because there's not been a lot of kind words about the end results on the miniatures. And I don't know if that was because they had up until now kind of shown nothing but the renders. The 3D rendering. I don't know if they'd actually shown a realistic one. And of course, it doesn't affect the gameplay because it's a board game as opposed to a miniatures kind of skirmish game. So it could kind of be plastic counters for, and they put the miniatures in because in order, obviously, it's one of these things that if it does help with the funding on Kickstarter, it can help you push you into six figures. But I think people were expecting, I think they said from the company that was producing it, they were expecting kind of more. So I think you're right. I think it's managing the kind of expectations.
I know this is going to sort of sound counterproductive, but for some projects, you can be too successful. You can reach a sort of critical mass of having to make design choices, which means you have to go to alternative routes for production. If you were to have a Kickstarter, and you're right in what you say in regards to most of these bigger model counts come from board games. But if if you're successful and do, let's say £1 million on Kickstarter for a board game, that's a lot of models to produce. You're not going to go to your local caster, resin caster, or metal caster, whoever you've been using. at that point, you're having to turn to probably Asia and China for your production. And that's where, not everybody, but some of, that's where the quality issues can creep in. And you look at the renders and then you compare the production models, and sometimes they're the same thing. Whereas, both Paranoid and Underestimated, we use, the best casters that we can. They're considered, we both use different companies, but they're both considered, top of the game when it comes to casting. But in all honesty, you're not going to be able to cast 60,000 models, or 70,000 models, with that type of casting. You could, but it's going to just take you a long time.
I think there's something. I think there's something else as well, Richard. I just want to touch on is that it's about communication. If you communicate I think people forget we're a business, but we are individuals. We're not corporate companies. We have a huge amount of experience in day job that we can apply to what we do. But that experience is typically limited. It's not about how we, run a massive company. Communication is paramount. I think people forget that actually, okay, you put a time frame in. So let's say we've put January next year. That can move as long as you tell people it can move and you explain why. I think people sometimes make decisions in perhaps worried about what could happen if they don't meet their timescales. They think, we're going to fail here. Yeah. So we better make a decision that could lead to a different type of failure or a different type of frustration. So it's hard, really, to, I suppose, balance it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard, obviously, Gary's been on the show a couple of times now, but Mark, do you want to maybe kind of blow your own trumpet and tell us a little bit about, yourself?
Do you want the 30-second pitch, the 3-minute pitch, or the 30-minute pitch?
Well, I'm just going to say how you got involved with this miscreant sitting next to you, basically.
Oh my goodness! Well, I've got to go back a few decades. I first ran into young Malado here at a Games Workshop shop in Ipswich. I'd recently got back into the hobby after a bit of a hiatus with females and married life and children, etc., and was looking for a hobby to do in the evenings. And I'd been into gaming previously, and I went back into a GW in Ipswich and picked up some Death Company back in the day. Started playing at the local store, as you do. GW reeled me right in with the Blood Angels. And oh God, what edition was that? Probably third edition,
fourth maybe.
The store at the time used to run sort of vets nights and stuff like that, so I started playing there, building up my army slowly, and crushed every time I played. And Gary sort of similar thing. I think started picking up. Unfortunately, the Space Wars, but we never hold that against him. It's not his fault, bless him. Somebody's got to play him.
Fairies River.
And we just got chatting, a couple of nights, and we've got quite a similar sense of humours. I'm a little bit older than Gary, so I'm not
a little bit.
More sensitive one.
It's the guffaw as the soundbar goes all the way up to bright red.
And we started playing at the Vets Nights, and GW at the time I think were moving, weren't they? And we were going to a gaming club back in the day, and that sort of it died a death for a bit. And one night we sat around and said, actually, I think we could put a gaming club together, didn't we? And we put a gaming club together in Ipswich, and that was we ran that for about 10, 12, 13 years, something like that.
Yeah, we did.
Legion. And, we were playing, typical gamers. We were playing everything under the sun. In the midst of all that, I went to my first salute and went, oh, my God, you can play other games. Not just 40k and fantasy. There's other games out there. And I think I spent about 400 quid on my first salute on loads of Malifaux stuff and Warmer Halls and all sorts of stuff. And it's like
the Blues Brothers, isn't it? kind of like we've got both types of music, country and western.
It was exactly like that. I mean, I will never forget my first salute, just going in there and going, holy moly, what is all this? And it's just, I mean, we've just been taking a piss out of each other ever since, to be honest with you.
Pretty much. We've built some cool stuff as well, like we made all the scenery for Legion, and we made coliseums and massive great boards and all sorts of stuff. We've done everything really. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
We ruined the blinds.
I don't want to know.
It still doesn't let me forget it now, I tell you. We were dry brushing and painting some scenery for Legion, and turned around one night after about 2 hours worth of painting, looked at the brand new beige blinds that had black paint splattered all over them. Yeah, that was a fun conversation.
Who did you blame it on? Or did
Gary,
you just kind of...
I get the blame for everything. I get the blame for everything.
But how did you move from... was being in the club together and doing stuff and painting the scenery, did that encourage you to go in to do stuff with Paranoid yourself then, Mark? Was that kind of your direction with things?
This is going to sound really corny, but they say that everybody's got a book inside them. Well, I think from a gamer's perspective, everybody's got a game that they would inside them that they would like to create. Not everybody, but a lot of people. I used to do a heck of a lot of driving for my day job. So I'd be in the car for 6 or 7 hours over the course of the day, and as I was driving around, I'd always been a massive fan of H.P. Lovecraft and the whole mythos, the Call of Cthulhu type role playing, and more importantly, the novels, the whole world and the sort of 1920s setting, the sort of complete madness and insanity of the great old ones and or the old, so they that whole genre was one of my sort of first loves. And after going to Salute and seeing all the sort of games that were around there, I sort of saw there wasn't really a game that was at the time that was based upon sort of a skirmish version of that. So in my head, I started to sort of, formulate and make notes, and got a little notepad and started writing things down. And eventually that sort of turned into Mythos. Some other guys became involved in it, and we started to work through it and design it and put it together. All gamers, all loads of experience, and that's where Paranoid sprang out of. And Mythos, the skirmish game, was born out of that.
Yeah, I mean, you ran your you ran your campaign for Mythos. That was how long ago was that? Was that a couple of years ago that you did that from?
That was
from Mythos?
3 years ago now, wow. And we actually went live on the same day as we were at Salute.
Okay.
Seemed like a good idea at the time, because we thought we got quite a captive audience, and there would be a lot of word of mouth. It did give us a good springboard into the campaign. And we done a sort of standard 30-day campaign trying to bring the factions to life. We did pretty well. Kickstarter we funded, and managed to get enough money to create the factions we wanted to. We'd done something a little bit different at the time as well. That there was one faction that we had left that didn't quite unlock as a stretch goal, which was the Order of the Enlightened Path. What we said to people is, if we raise enough funds in backer kit, we would unlock those essentially as another stretch goal in backer kit, which we didn't think had been done before. So we done that, and we unlocked. So we got all of the factions unlocked, and then we went into full production mode, and we had sculptors. We had sculptors in place. We had 3D printers in place. We were using a company for production, and I am proud to say that we delivered on time and in full to everybody, and we gave people a little bit extra stuff as well as along the way. So we were really chuffed with the way that ended up.
At the time, was that kind of like? I mean, it's as a miniatures kind of skirmish game as being kind of like your first game. That must have been a bit of a cool sense of achievement to take something from an idea, because as you say, a lot of people have an idea of a game kind of inside them, but you took it kind of all the way all the kind of the way through. And as we said previously, the miniatures market is such a competitive kind of market. And you did like what Gary did with like the pledge manager. I remember Gary saying that the pledge manager for yourself actually helped with the Purgatory kind of mini campaign. Kind of afterwards, actually helped you to I guess give you a little bit more financial stability. Then you had to accept a kind of a different level at the time, and the pledge manager allowed you to guarantee that you were definitely kind of go and deliver on that, which is kind of cool. Do you? I mean, with it being kind of you both being involved in the kind of the miniatures games, how important is it to keep the kind of the community going behind those games, to keep people playing? I mean, have you both been kind of releasing kind of additional content, additional kind of campaigns, changes to stats and stuff like that? Is that stuff that you've both been doing for your individual kind of projects?
We've both got a Facebook group. Mark's got We Are the Hidden Ones, and I've got Fans of Purgatory. There's a couple hundred members in each, I think, from understanding. And we release things through there. It's a sounding board for people to talk to us about stuff, what they find. I think we're both very receptive. If people come up with problems, we've got a character, for example, in Purgatory called Small Daniels, and he has a move called the Wizard Sleeve. And we had to clarify what happens if, for example, the idea is that you can pick a character up and place them up the sleeve and he disappears and he can't be targeted. We had to clarify, for example, what happens if Small Daniel should die when someone's up his sleeve. And we said, well, he's dead. No one's going to bring him back. But, we've done that. And we've created Purgatory. We've created short stories. Mark's created the Sea Queen campaign. So we've tried as best we can to try and give additional content. At Purgatory, we created a model in the last year outside of Kickstarter called Moloch. He was the angel version of the big Minotaur that we released at Kickstarter. And it's the demand for him has been overwhelming, actually. And it's been quite good. It's given us a little bit of a pep, a bit of a spring in our step to say, actually, people do value these. What was brilliant for me, and I didn't know it happened until lots of people have got in touch with me, but there's a chap called Volomir that appears, and he picks his most interesting models of any given week, and he picked that model up and said, I like this one, and it appeared in his blog. And, that's quite an achievement. And I didn't know, I just got all these congratulations come through on message. I thought, what the hell is this for? And then I looked into it and I couldn't believe that we'd been included. So we've both had really good success in seeing models at shows and being painted and displayed. So the miniatures game is a hard one. We're up against lots of different styles, lots of different themes, busts, large scale, things like a boutique, the likes of Kingdom Death, for example. They're all in the same realm. So I think we've picked, I don't know how wisely we have picked, but I've gone for a heaven and earth kind of thing, and Mark's gone on the Cthulhu side of things. So we've picked a genre and a niche that might separate us out from everything else and give us our own space to breathe, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that,
Picking up on the point of the community, I think it's 100% lifeblood for companies like us and Underestimated. Having for want of a better phrase, a fan base or people that are really into your game is as important as anything else we do. So having people out there that are going to be able to demo it for us, and me and Gary are involved in a Facebook group called Gotham to Samaria. There's loads of guys on there that have picked both of our game sets up and are running with it. In fact, a few months ago, I woke up one weekend, sort of Sunday morning, and realised there was quite a few orders that had come from overnight, and I found out from there that a guy had been demoing Mythos at one of their events, and obviously people liked it. I didn't know anything about it at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden I'm getting orders in, and you know we're chatting, and you know we've built up some really good friendships with the guys on there, and you know that type of thing really does help. You know, our cause.
To give an example of that, Richard, this weekend just gone, those guys at Gotham Scenario, they had a playtesting weekend. They just go, they drink beer, they play games, they introduce people to it, and I just sent them a pack up and said, look, I can't make it, you know, have a go at it, and it's on me, kind of thing. But they came back with some fantastic feedback. And so there were a couple of the characters that they tried and they used them in unique circumstances. And actually I could see where they were coming from. And they just said, look, we think this is a bit punchier. We think this is a bit weak. What do you reckon? And I mean, I must have sat on the group chat with them for a good sort of 2 or 3 hours and chatted it through with them. I said, look, you know, as they were playing, I was giving them solutions to try during the game, and bless them, they tried them. And actually we've made some tweaks off the back of their feedback. So it is invaluable because we can play as many games as we want. We play the characters in the style that we believe they're designed to be played, but naturally people like you or anyone else will play them differently. And you can't always consider everyone else's perspective, and we value that so much.
I was going to say, I think if you introduce somebody who's been used to a certain system of playing and then put, you know, if they're a Games Workshop folk, you know, and you put them downside kind of like in front of in front of Purgatory, I think they'll be out of their comfort zone, so they'll maybe try something that they would normally try with a GW kind of rule set. And I think sometimes it works, and sometimes you get something kind of new and kind of interesting, kind of off the back of that, which is always kind of cool.
I think one of the things that Gary mentioned, just that will give you an insight into what sort of stuff we do. You know, the Sea Queen campaign was something that we promised backers when we done our Kickstarter, but it was something that we wanted to spend. We didn't want to rush it. We didn't want to just get something out there for the sake of saying we'd done it. We wanted to release a product that we knew that we could use the same mechanics going forward in other campaigns. And with the Sea Queen campaign, we spent hours upon hours upon hours of designing it, putting it together, having it graphically designed, and you know it's a free download on our website. We've never charged for it, but it's a campaign that you can play, you know, repeatedly. There are elements within it that are completely random. So just because you play through it once is not the end of it. You can play through it again and again. And, you know, me and Gary have played through campaigns for things like Necromunda, Mordheim, you know, all those sorts of things, Blood Bowl, where you get people that, you know, 2 or 3 games in, you know, what's the point in playing anymore because, you know, they're going to steamroll me. Whereas the campaign we've designed, there's none of that. You right until the last minute, you can effectively win the campaign.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen my son, interestingly enough, who he's kind of gotten into Warhammer 40,000 recently. We are trying to do something about that. But I've seen, we do have the questions of like, well, how did you get on? And it's like, well, I've set up my army in such a way so that if I do this action, and this action, I can basically get through like the first 2 rounds and then wipe out everybody else because I've kind of got the tactics down. And that's not something that appeals to me. I kind of like a slow, almost like a nice war of attrition that can kind of change back and forward kind of all the way through. I was playing Giant Killer Robots, GKR Heavy Hitters, which is like Weta Workshop one.
Yeah.
And the base rules kind of way that you're just kind of like, you're getting line of sight and you're doing kind of alley shots and you're kind of picking a weapon and shooting at folk. It's quite pedestrian. But then as you tag buildings and you demolish buildings, you get kind of sponsor cards. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to actually start to mess with other people's setup. So you can play a sponsor card at a certain part in a game, and what that does is that, stops that person from using a certain type of weapon, or slows them down, or makes them actually move more spaces. And in some cases, when you move your heavy hitter, if every time you move a space, you burn up energy. So you're forcing somebody to move a couple of extra spaces instead of the normal ones. So they're actually burning up the energy that they have for that round, so they can't kind of fire the weapon. So I like the kind of the back and forward. If I'm going into a battle, I don't want to know, it's like, as I say, Magic the Gathering, when you get somebody who's set up their hand so that if they play this card, then that's it. You might as well just pack up and kind of go home.
Yeah.
With you having the kind of the tighter knit community, has that allowed you guys to kind of experiment then with rule sets and things like that?
Interestingly enough, you hit on something I want to talk about anyway. We've created something. So Purgatory have created something this time around. So we had so many people that liked the game first time around that just don't like competitive play. It's a new thing. I'm not sure I necessarily understand it, but I do. I'm getting there, and they want to be able to play alongside friends and have a sort of collaborative goal or collective goal towards something. So we've created a cooperative mode for our game. And it's exactly what you've said there. There's two modes to it. So the way that it works is that for each character now, you'll get an encounter card. Mm-hmm. And so you get the stat cards. You can play that in the skirmish game, but you get an encounter card, and that accompanies your model. And then what you do is you put all of your encounter cards into a deck, shuffle them, and you and your friend pick a card each. Mm-hmm. And you turn it over, and that's the model you start with. That is your gang. You've started your gang. So there's a theme to it as well. And then what you do is you then say, okay, this is our gang. This is who we are. Let's draw the first card. And you draw a card, and then you have to complete that encounter together.
All right, okay.
And the idea is that you complete 5 encounters together. You either win or lose them. And then you go off and you fight an encounter boss. And you're doing it all together. And actually, it means you can do it on your own as well if you really want to. There's nothing to say you can't. So, but we've created these things, and there's 2 modes to it. So easy mode, for example, if you lose hit points or if you lose characters along the way, people from your gang die or get hurt, at the start of the next encounter, everything's replenished and off you go to the boss. In hard mode, you have to think about it in a different way. There's a different strategy to it, because if you lose hit points, or if people die, they carry forward. And you might go to the boss with 7 or 6 or 5 characters, and you've still got to try and do it. So you change the tactics of it just by creating 2 modes. And it means that people have the choice. It's not foisted upon them. They haven't got to play hard mode. They haven't got to play easy mode. Whatever works for them in their metagaming group or whatever, it's, they can choose. And we've created some fun in there as well. We didn't want the same old thing where it was kill this person or, chase this person off the board or whatever else. We've created some things from our childhood in there as well. So I don't know if you played it at school. I think it was called Knock on Wolf. And the idea, or What Time, Mr. Wolf? And the idea is all the mates would stay at one end of the playground and the other guy would be in. So Stevie, who's our blind pianist, he's basically, you put your characters one end of the board and you put him the other, and you move forward. And if you roll a 1, he spots you and shoots at you because he hears you coming.
Oh, right, okay.
And you've got to get to him and get into close contact with him. And if you can do that without dying, you gain him and he joins your faction. Another one, for example, is where we demonstrated it recently, where you just try and drink Mike under the table. You just prop yourself up against a bar and you just roll dice just to see if you can beat Mike in a drinking competition. It's the Purgatory childishness, but it's just adding something different. And, Mark made a really valid point earlier that we considered, which was, if you miss a week or if you miss a game, your crew is typically less powerful than the others that played that week in Necromunda or Mordheim or Gorkamorka or something like that. The idea of this small encounters is that you can, if you haven't got a lot of time, you can just play an encounter and go, don't worry, we've got those characters for the next time we play. And then you can do it slowly or you can do it in one hit, but you've got a variety of play. And the community gave us that idea because they asked for something different. They said, we like your game, but we just don't want competitive play. And we didn't, I'm not saying we're stubborn. I don't want to turn a skirmish game into a board game overnight, but I wanted to try and find a way that I could tailor it to do that. And the idea, like I say, came from people that might be listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I think you have to be flexible nowadays. I think we're in the we're kind of at a funny point where I can see the hobby trying to embrace kind of digital, and I also see sometimes them bringing out kind of game systems, not necessarily kind of here's a fully fledged board game. And I think you're in I'm going to say you're probably in a better position maybe than Games Workshop in terms of your flexibility, probably for both of you, in that you could take an idea and put it out there, and it's going to take time, I guess, to do that. But then you're not obviously committing, I guess, the huge financial risk to putting somewhere out there to get it played. And obviously you've got your champions there as well who are going to continue to work with you and get your feedback, which is cool. Let's talk about this campaign that's going to be rocking up on the 1st of March. So do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Mark? Get you back.
Yeah, no problem. So we sat down as we said earlier. We were chewing the fat about. We were both going to be going back to Kickstarter, and we wanted. We eventually come to the conclusion that we felt that we could work together with each other to produce 2 separate Kickstarters, but with a bridge across them that would allow both of us to utilise, backers or word of mouth or whatever you want to call it, to build up a bit of momentum on Kickstarter, because that's effectively what it is about as well. It's about building a bit of momentum. So the Kickstarter for Mythos is fairly clear. It's simple. It's concise. We are wanting to bring the Brotherhood and a brand new faction to the Mythos world. As I said, we've been going to shows. We take our art books to shows. People can see the art that we've had done from them. People really, really love the artwork. So the campaign for us is about bringing the Brotherhood, like I say, to the world. When I chatted with Gary about it, we felt that we could do some sort of crossover between the two worlds, and there are some models that can come from Gary's world into our world, and there are some models that can come from our world into Gary's world, and we'll have further talks about that as we go down the path. But as it stands, we need to create something new. We're gamers as well. We like to have new shinies and new models, and we settled upon a sort of a race of beings that are different in both worlds. So in Gary's world, they have a particular name and a particular way of going about things, and it's different in Mythos. So they're not exactly. I wouldn't say they're exactly the same race. We're not going to go that way. We're taking our own directions with it. But if you pledge at a certain level with us, which is the crossover into Madness pledge, and if you pledge on Gary's Kickstarter at the crossover into Madness pledge, those backers will get the model that we've designed, and we're going to hopefully put up some stuff about that very, very shortly. But you will get a multi-part model that you'll be able to bring into both worlds.
Do you need to pledge on both campaigns, or just pledge on one?
You need to pledge on both campaigns at the level that we've deemed it. And if you're confirmed as a backer on both of those, on both Kickstarters post the campaign, if we're successful, then you will get that model as a freebie. With the Mythos side of things, the way that you will be able to bring that into our world is what we are calling a Nemesis deck. And it's something that we've done before with another model of ours called the Cultist Leader. The Cultist Leader was a free model that we gave away to everybody in our original Kickstarter. So everybody that backed at a certain level got this free cultist leader model. We brought a deck of cards into play for him, which is, without going into too much detail, in our game you use Mythos as a sort of in-game currency. You spend it to do certain things, certain actions in-game. By the same token, you're going a bit madder every time you use it. But the mechanism for the cultist leader is, on the deck of cards is they're two-faced. On the front is just a number, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as you spend Mythos in the game, once you hit that trigger, you turn over the card and there's a number of actions that you can apply for the cultist leader. So you can bring him into any game of Mythos, and he acts as like an NPC. He can give you some victory points, and he does various random suicidal, murderous things. And we're going to do that similar. We're going to do the same thing with what we're calling the Aluka, which is our version of the aliens, if you like. So the backer from us will also get the Nemesis deck that they'll be able to run that model in any game of Mythos.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. We're also, Gary's kindly allowed us to use Jack as a crossover model. And he's even had a little bit of resculpting done on Jack, because a massive sort of chainsword didn't quite fit with the 1920s vibe of Mythos. So he's going to be carrying a lovely sacrificial dagger. Similar thing, he's going to be an add-on, and again it'll be a Nemesis deck, so you'll be able to bring him into any game of Mythos as well. So a similar principle to the Aluka. And then finally for the campaign, we have got a number of stretch goals that we would be looking to unlock during the course of the campaign, and that will bring an additional model into each of the existing factions if we fund all of those stretch goals. And so we've got 6 additional models for additional models for the factions.
Are you going to have pledge levels for people who missed out on the first campaigns? So you're going to allow are you going to have entry levels to allow people to kind of who didn't back a couple of years ago? And I take it that be obviously both sides, for yourself and for Gary. Have you thought about doing that at all?
Which has, to a certain extent. We've done 2 things. One is that we've created starter sets. So what we realise is that we can't force one faction upon everybody and expect them to buy it. We instead give people the option. So we have 5 factions on offer this time around. The Soul Train, Murder Inc., Gangbangers, Refugees of Religion, and the Acolytes. So actually new people can come to the game and have a broad range to choose from. We've created a pledge for existing backers. Jason, it was his idea, actually, to be fair. He said that, can you make a pledge that gives us everything that's new for those that haven't previously? But the other thing that we've done is that because there's so many backers that supported us previously, they'll go, well, I've got all your models, but I haven't got the encounter cards. I can't benefit from extra content. So what we've said is that we're going to create these encounter cards for all of the models, and then we'll create a box that we'll sell at cost to people. So all they've got to do is confirm that they were on the original Kickstarter, and if they can confirm that, we validate the name against our list. We will send them those out at cost plus shipping, so that they don't have to buy more. Good. Because it is about generating a following. It's about, we can't expect to be supported by people, and people put faith in us without us supporting them back. It's a two-way street. Mark is doing something different, but again, it's adding fresh content, and I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, our Kickstarter is about bringing the Brotherhood to life, and the additional models as well to widen out the factions. But we do recognise completely that some people missed out last time on getting the factions. So what we are doing is, as an add-on, you can purchase at a reduced price any of the existing factions that we've got. So, for example, our buy-in level for the crossover into Madness or the Brotherhood faction is £40. We will be doing the faction box sets, which are normally retailed at £45. We'll be doing those at £40 as an add-on. So, quite simply, people just need to, if they want 1, 2, 3, 4 factions, they just add that to their pledge, and we'll get them out to them when we send out the Brotherhood. So slightly different way of doing it, same result at the end of it, to a degree, a little bit.
And what's the price of entry going to be for your pledge level then, Mark? What are we looking at to get?
Well, we've got the standard pound pledge, that gets you access to the updates and access to Pledge Manager. Then we've got the crossover into Madness pledge, which is £40, and that's for the Brotherhood faction, and also we'll see across on Gary's Kickstarter his pledge, and that gives you the free model as well with the Nemesis deck. And then the final pledge level we've got is if you didn't want to go in onto the crossover into Madness, just a straight £40 pledge for the Brotherhood, and any add-ons that you want to add into the Kickstarter.
And how many? What are you getting with the Brotherhood pledge then? How many kind of models are you getting?
You're getting five models, 5 resin models. Comes with bases. The way we operate our game, you have a character card, which is an oversized card, and you get a tracker card as well. So you can track conditions, wounds, sanity. So there's no need for too many tokens or anything on the table. You've got 2 cards in front of you where you can track everything. So you get those. And there's obviously 5 highly detailed resin models.
That sounds good. What about yourself, Mr. Deveraux? What is the how much? How much?
We both of us actually, I think, consciously looked at the price for entry. We didn't want to demand over hundreds of pounds for our game. We wanted to. We certainly at Purgatory wanted to make it low entry. Something that's affordable for people to just get involved and give it a go. It's hard to expect people to pay £200 for something or £150 something that they've got no idea what it plays like. 30 quid is still money, but it's not as much, and it might be seen as a more viable option. So in our box, you get a rule book, which will be the version 2 of it, which will include the cooperative play. You'll get 3 models. You get 13 Gift of the Gods cards, which is enough for you to play. One of which is a specific one to the faction box. You get a dice, you get the stat cards, you get the encounter cards, and that's everything you need to play a game is in one box. We've got a number of pledges. We've got the pound, as Mark sort of suggested earlier. We have the encounters are available separate. They're £22. They come with an encounter deck because the boss is self-playing, it's self-automated. And so you have £22 for that, £30 for the starter set. We have a cooperative edition because that's what ours is about, where it's 2 starter sets, and you both get a rule book, so you can both play and learn. And then we've got one which supports people that have got everything already but want the new content. And then for new people, we've got buy everything if you want it.
Yeah.
So it's about adding value. We've talked this evening about the value of our product, the quality of our casting, the crossover. We can't give you manufactured models. In fact, we don't even want to. I want to speak for Mark. He might say no, but I don't think we want to give people substandard quality models. I think we want to give them high quality models. We're immensely proud of them. So instead, we've got to find a way of differentiating ourselves from the competition. And that is having models that you can buy and spend £10 on, but play in 2 gaming systems. It's having characters that can appear in 2 different worlds. It's having a game that has multiple modes. It has a game like Mark's where you get fresh content that allows you to play different scenarios. It's about giving what we can and adding as much value as we can without typically, taking out huge bank loans.
I'd agree with that. And you talked about community earlier, and there's we've got a couple of guys that have done some videoing for us, off their own back. Got a guy called gents called Dan and Chuck over at Infinity Idiots who've done some battle reports on Mythos, and I'd urge people to go and watch those because they do show the depth of gameplay, the decision making that you have to make. It's 5 models v 5 models, but because of the models, as in Gary's system, are so characterful and have so many different rules, how they interact with other characters, how they interact with your opponents or certain scenario or objectives. Those videos really do show the level of gameplay and the level of detail and decision making you have to go into just playing a skirmish game. And picking up on Gary's point on the quality, it is, it's what brings people to our table. We're at shows, we've both got display cabinets that people will wander over to, and we'll have comments like, "Oh my God, they're fantastic. They're some of the best models, if not the best models at the show." And getting getting the models in front of people, getting the gameplay in front of people, generally turns out they really like it and really love the games.
Is it a challenge to get the word out? Is that the 90% kind of question with Kickstarter? Is it less now about kind of presenting an ideal game? Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm continually seeing Kickstarters just getting cancelled. And they're ones that are getting funded and they're just going. I mean, folk are just turning up and saying, well, we're not doing it because we're not going to reach the goal. Even though we've reached our funding goal, we're not going to reach the goal that we expected to get. And we don't know, and we're going to come back and we're going to try and develop more noise and more marketing. So is this what the battle is now? It's not necessarily always about the game. You can have the best game in the world, but it's about kind of shouting above everybody else in order to get that kind of attention.
We can't shout louder than everybody else. You have asked the $1 million question, because if there were an answer to it, then Kickstarter would be easy. Getting 90% of people to listen to you and to actually stop in their mid-morning scroll on Facebook or whatever else it might be, stopping people is either by artwork or by a model, not typically by text, but I think people are wiser now to the game. I won't name the Kickstarter, but I do know of a Kickstarter where he said, I'm literally going to completely undervalue things to make it so that it funds, because it's about the momentum. If it funds and people see stretch goals getting smashed through, all of a sudden they see loads of value coming their way. They're now getting 50 models for their money rather than 20. And then once it reached 40, 50, 60,000, whatever it might be, that's where I'll start to make profit. But the problem is, if it funds at the value you set, he just cancelled it because he said, "Well, I didn't make enough money out of it." I think you have to. We were talking. I mean, I freely showed Mark my commercial model this evening just to say, look, this is what we're trying to achieve, and it's all things considered. And when you write a Kickstarter and you have to guess how many people might buy it, it's incredibly difficult to know what your costs are going to be. So there's a mechanism that I apply that says if I want this much money because these are my other costs, how many do I need to sell of that to then, and then what's the associated cost of sale to then build that number back up and back down again, and it drifts. And it's incredibly difficult, but I think people have got wise to. I mean, some people haven't received Kickstarter still. They backed 2 or 3 years ago. I think,
or probably aren't going to be receiving Kickstarters that they backed 2 or 3 years ago.
Absolutely, and I find that disgraceful, actually, and that's a personal view. But if people like Mark and I can give up personal time, and we can absolutely work, to the grindstone to deliver these for people, and we're individuals or we're small teams, it's incredibly frustrating to see the amount of momentum and hype that some companies get only to fail their backers. We won't do that, and I think people are wise to it. I think people now question certain things. We talked earlier about the cast versus the 3D render. Yeah. They've also started to sort of question now, or is that value even achievable? How many units do you need to sell? The Kickstarter community's got wise to it.
It's about having a sensible approach to what you can deliver. anybody can, and I use it, and I'm not casting any aspersions against anybody else. I'm just using a hypothetical anybody. Anybody can create a Kickstarter which says, pledge at this level, this is my target, and you'll get this, you'll get X, and we're going to give you X for free, and you're going to get Y for free, and rightly or wrongly, ours is not going to be a Kickstarter like that. It's very contained. It's a faction plus additional models. We know we can deliver that if we fund, and we do unlock the stretch goals. We know that we will be able to deliver those. We've got the production facilities in place. We've got the pipeline is fully done. So, but we're not going to be promising everybody the earth. We've done as much as we can in regards to the free model. We don't have hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend on marketing or anything like that. But we know if we fund and hit our targets, and hopefully if we unlock the stretch goals, we will be able to deliver those. We've got a proven track record. Both of us have got proven track records on Kickstarter and being able to deliver. But that's because we've taken a sensible approach of what is pragmatic and what we can deliver in the timelines. All timelines is another thing. Being sensible about timelines. Gary and me, we're looking towards the end of the year, early part of next year, we will be delivering, upon, if we're successful in the campaigns. One thing we're going to do is we are going to, up front, right from day one, show you what all of the stretch goals are. So that if you want to pledge, and this is where the mechanics of Kickstarter kicks in. So if a backer wants to go in and say they want to get the Brotherhood, they want to get an additional faction, and they maybe want to get the 2 additional models that goes with both of those factions, then if they pledge at that level at that time, then if everybody does that, do you know what I mean? That's what builds the momentum. That's what unlocks. Yeah. That's what unlocks stuff. So I'd urge people if they want to pledge, then that's probably the way to do it. But that'd be down to every individual.
Well, I mean, I can only wish you the best of luck with both of the campaigns when they kick off at the beginning of next month. If people have listened along and they want to know where you guys exist on the internet webs, where do you exist on the internet webs? We know where Gary exists, I can tell you.
Gary's
but where do you exist, Mark, on the internet webs?
Okay, we are at Facebook. We're at just type in Paranoid Miniatures and you'll get us on Facebook. Our website is www.paranoid-miniatures.com. It's a fancy new website there. We are on Twitter at Paranoid Minis. As Gary mentioned earlier, we've got our fan page, which is called We Are the Hidden Ones, on Facebook as well. They're all our main. Facebook is one of our main vehicles for releasing stuff. We tend to release stuff a little bit earlier on We Are the Hidden Ones to give people a little bit of an insight. It's a fan base. We like to give show a bit of loyalty to people there, and but yeah, that's where you can find us on the interweb.
I've just found you, Gary. And I found you, Mark, as well. So I'm making sure that I'm just going through and making sure we're getting them all down as we go. We know where you are, Gary. Yeah, you just go to the internet webs and type kind of underestimated games, and Purgatory Minis and join the
on Twitter. We are not wizards. We are wizards. We're not wizards. That's you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's not random. It's live.
It's by design.
But absolutely, it's absolutely. What about yourself?
You can find me on Facebook. We have Fans of Purgatory. You can find us on Facebook. Just go type in Purgatory. We are also on the interwebs as www.purgatory-miniatures.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter, which we probably need to be better at Purgatory Minis. One thing I would like to say to people is that we do have a painting competition at the moment going with some fantastic prizes for people. It's sponsored by a number of different people. It starts on the 1st of March and it ends at the end of June. So if you are interested, go to the pages and go and paint one up and enter, because you can win a huge heap of prizes.
What he said, do that.
I've got one final thing I want to say, if that's okay.
No.
I'm going to hijack Gary a little bit now, and he's looking a bit nervous. I don't know why.
No, I'm all right.
So one thing that you talk about, listening to the community and reacting to it. We've been posting stuff up about the Kickstarters for a bit of time now, and when one of the guys from Purgatory found out that we're going to be doing sort of like a bit of a crossover with Mythos and Purgatory. There's two models that this guy wanted to see have a scrap against each other from both, one from each system. And I read it and I thought, actually, that sounds like a really good idea. Rang Gary and said, what do you think? Gary, being Gary, was, yeah, it's on. So we went away and I designed for rules for one of his characters in Mythos. Gary designed rules for one of our characters in Purgatory. And we've done a Facebook Live stream where we just mashed them up and had a scrap. And we put a poll up, and we are going to be doing it again very soon.
Yeah. The poll that you've got, so I know that St. Peter is representing Purgatory.
And Goat.
So you had it. Well, the thing is, it's about community, Richard. We know we listen, we try and give back. We had this, it was a bit of fun, it was a bit of laughter. And actually, I'll be honest with you, Mark and I are already talking. I mean, people might not know this, but we're already talking about ways in which we can perhaps stress test those rules that we created for a bit of fun, so that another character can be used in the game. No reason why not.
Cool. No, that would be really, really smart. That would be really, really smart. As I say, I can only wish you the best of luck with both of the campaigns. Because you guys, I know you guys work hard, and you're kind of, the quality of the miniatures that you're putting out there is absolutely fantastic, and that's not to besmirch anyone else that's putting kind of miniatures out there.
Yeah.
But if you haven't looked at what's happening on both companies, check out their stuff, because some of the miniatures are just they're fantastic. They're amazing. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet web, search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter, and our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. We're on Instagram as well. We shut down Tumblr today because... and you can still find us on various kind of internet webs. If you want to read some words by people, some of our guest writers, you can go to we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. There is a recent blog entry from Janice Turner of Wren Games, all about what happens when somebody plays your game wrong. You can find us on the normal kind of podcast catchers, which is your Stitchers, your Speakers, your Acast, your Google Podcasts, which is a thing. Spotify, we're on Spotify.
Hey, damn the kids.
Yep, absolutely. On YouTube as well. Thanks to Podbean, who put our shows on YouTube every single time that we make them. If you like what you've listened to tonight, do a couple of things for us. Check out what these guys are doing. If you like what you've listened to tonight, tell somebody else about it, because that's how our podcast grows. And the other thing, you can go to the Apple Podcasts and you can give us a subscription, you can give us a rating, or you can give us a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or review, don't give us 10 stars, because it makes me big-headed, and I've got a big, shiny head. I'm just seeing in this camera. I'm going to have to flower this thing up later on. Or don't give us 1 star, because it makes us cry, like my receding hairline. But give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we're just a little bit, a little tiny little bit average. But the gentlemen have not been average tonight. I give you Mark. I give you Gary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the middle.
For your time.
I've just started stalking you on Twitter as well.
And there's only a couple more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, gentlemen?
No.
Definitely not. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Mark. Say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye.
It's a goodbye from Gary. Say goodbye, Gary.
Bye-bye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. check out the show notes when this goes out, because there'll be links to the campaigns and all the other places where you can see these places, worn out faces, worn out places. But until the next time, whether you be searching for something to do with Cthulhu, or you'd be looking for something that could be heaven or could be hell, or whether you're looking for something in the middle where they're meeting and there's tentacles flying and halos and pitchforks and everything's just going bat crazy, then check out this. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.